Hi, I'm Rik Emmett from Triumph, and I'm here today at the CBC to talk to you about the double neck guitar. And this is my Gibson double neck guitar, and I've had maybe 6 or 7 of these things in my lifetime. Yeah, you're probably wondering, where did they come from? Why are there double necks? Why would you need a double neck? And of course, you don't need one, you just want one. And part of it is, I think, why I wanted one. I mean, I saw guys like John McLaughlin and Steve Howe of Yes, and of course Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, and I wanted to be like those guys. I wanted one of those for my very own. So that's how it started. But I think I'm going to step back just a little bit, and we'll talk about the history of the guitar just for a second, so that you can understand why a guitar player would want 2 necks. I think the first big divide of guitar playing happened when, sort of from the late 30s into the 40s and then the beginning of the 50s, acoustic guitars started becoming electric. So that became one big thing, acoustic and electric. And of course, that was because they wanted to get louder. They needed to be able to compete. And once they had amplifiers and electric guitars, and then by the time we sort of got to the 50s, Fender and Gibson started making solid body guitars, and now they could get really loud. Then the next thing that started to happen, and this was sort of early 60s, there were guitar players like James Burton, who played with Ricky Nelson on TV. And these guys started coming with the idea of being able to take a banjo string and put it on the guitar so that you could move all the gauges of strings over one, and you'd have skinny, kind of easy to bend strings. And then as amps got bigger and there was more distortion, this became, I think, the next big leap in guitar playing. So, to go back to the original question of why would you want 2 necks, essentially it's because you're probably going to want the 12-string neck to do acoustic guitar-ish kinds of things live. And then at the flick of a switch, you can go to all that really crazy, great electric guitar playing, loud bending of strings kind of thing. And that's the essential reason why there's 2 necks. And I'll illustrate some of that for you now. So for me, I would be in a tune, and I might be playing something that was like... This is a tune called Blinding Light Show. And so it kind of went... Still very acoustic-y and tinkly, and then I would hit the switch and hit a switch on the floor and be able to go... So it changes things right away from kind of floating like a butterfly to stinging like a bee, or tinkling like a 12-string and pounding like a Les Paul. But they're heavy, and, the longer you wear them in life, the more your discs in your back will complain. So guys they don't usually use them for a whole show. They just use them as a novelty item for one song. The first one I had, like when I would play a chord, if I leaned back, then it would go a little bit sharp. And if I leaned forward, it would go a little bit flat because of the weight of the things. They don't do that anymore. They're made a little more solid than that now, and better woods and just better everything. I consider this to be, maybe one of the best that exist, the Gibson, and part of the reason is because you can't beat this kind of sound. That's a riff from Never Surrender. And, that song in particular, it started with all of this kind of tinkly. Et cetera, et cetera. And then I would get to a point where I would hit the switch and be able to play. So that illustrates the thing about a Gibson humbucker guitar. It has power, and that power allows you to have that rich sustain and that singing quality in the notes that you play. And I think probably double necks have fallen out of fashion, and probably will continue to do so. And that's because in a digital universe, you can get almost anything you want at the poke of a button or the flick of a switch or the dragging of a mouse. And there are guitar players nowadays, and a band that would come to mind is Muse, where the guitar player is doing all kinds of crazy things, and he's got like a little touchpad screen on his guitar face, and his guitar can do anything. It can sound like a jet engine taking off, or any guitar sound he wants because of samples. So this is kind of old school, but I do think that there's a kind of there's always a faction that exists in pop culture where somebody's doing retro, somebody's going back and resurrecting something from 25 years ago, or the stuff that they heard on their parents' records when they were growing up. So I think there's plenty of guitar players out there that just want to be like Jimmy Page. So they see him doing Stairway to Heaven and they think, oh, I got to do that too. So in that sense, it'll never go away, but it makes it too easy to be. You can get these kinds of sounds out of a little pedal board with a foot switch. You don't really necessarily need the 12 strings to be able to get it.